JMD. And this video, this is a first time thing for me. So please bear with me a little bit on this. I'm probably gonna have to edit the hell out of this video, but what I want to accomplish here is to kind of have a video. This is not anything that's going to be kind of some kind of formal training teaching video. But what I wanted to do was kind of just have a tips video for people who are like first beginning to learn how to play. And the reason why this come about was there's a guy on YouTube here that I follow, and I started following him for reactions. He was doing reactions to bands that I really like Korn and stuff like that. But shortly after he started doing reactions, he got the sort of feeling that he wanted to learn how to play drums. Early on, when he had a couple of videos come out of him. He had gotten him a little electric drum set, and he was showing himself, kind of learning through it, and he was asking for advice, tips, things like that. Like I said, this was probably about 3 months ago. And I'm sure he's had plenty of people give him tips, and probably better tips than I'm going to have in this one. But I originally told him that I could potentially put together some like little tips, things that I wish I would have known when I was first starting out. But it would be from like my perspective, which is a perspective of someone who learned how to play the drums on their own. I've never been technically trained in any kind of way on the drums. It's just something that came natural to me. So while this is now a few months out and I'm finally actually getting around to doing this, I decided to do it more in a way where this is going to be more general to anybody, but also I do plan on sharing this with him. Hopefully something in this will, help him in some kind of way, and also potentially help you. Real quick, I'm JMD. I have been playing drums for roughly about 18 years, somewhere around there. I think I was like 24, so when I started with my own kit. But music and drums and stuff like that was something that was always been embedded with me, in me for as long as I know. Like, I had like colic as a baby, and the only way that my parents could like calm me down was to put me in a swing and literally put headphones on my ears. It was the only way that they could calm me down, and I would go to sleep listening to music. So I think that was something that was core to me, is understanding music in that way and feeling the beat, feeling the tempo, feeling all these things. So even though I attempted learning how to play the piano, I attempted learning how to play the guitar, those things didn't really click to me like the drums did. Even the first time that I even sat behind a set of drums, it's like I immediately knew what I was doing. Like I had been playing them for years. By no means am I a professional. I don't consider myself a professional. I consider myself above average, I would hope. It comes to like something like knowing rudiments and all these different patterns and how to apply them. I do not know. I've never really taken the time to learn rudiments and stuff like that. I mean, I know some basic rudiments, so that's not me. The way that I learned drums is not necessarily what I would recommend. It just depends on you. This is mostly going to be just tips about things that I didn't know when I started out that would help safety and protection for yourself, safety and protection for the drum kit, maintenance and things for the kit. Like, I'm gonna go over some things like that would help out, save you money or save you time and hardship or whatever. But also, I want to kind of approach some stuff actually playing and how to think through that from a perspective, like I said, of me who has never had any kind of formal training. If that's something that you're looking for, that's what this video is for, and hopefully it will help you in some kind of way. So this kit right here is eccentric. It's big. It's massive. Most of the time, you're either going to go with a more simple form version, which I have over there in the corner, stacked up. Your basic kind of ride cymbal, crash cymbal setup with maybe one or two toms up top, one floor tom or something like that. Your bass, snare, hi-hats, and that's going to be most of the time your basic setup, something to learn on, whether it's acoustic version or a electric version or some kind of hybrid version. And those are different, you know, in themselves. If you are in an area that you have no problem with sound, you have no problem with being loud, like I live in a rural area in the country, nobody cares if I'm loud. So this acoustic set here is perfectly fine. Understand that the acoustic set is loud. There's no like, it is loud. But if you are in more of a urban area, you've got neighbors, your sound ordinance, or whatever the case, you can't be that loud. Electric set most certainly should be where you're going. A hybrid set is kind of in the middle of that. I think I've never played on one necessarily, but I think it's a little bit quieter than an acoustic, but not as quiet as an electric. It just depends on what you're going for there is how you're going to do that. I recommend if you are able to, you know, to be loud and go the acoustic set. One thing for me personally, safety is something that I wish I would have considered early on, and that is ear protection. That's something that you should really consider, because whether that is like your just standard earplugs or something like that, or even something a little bit more advanced, like I have some eargasm earplugs here that, you know, have ports and stuff to kind of bring down certain highs and stuff like that are, you know, could damage your ears. Something like that is okay. What I play now is because I have my set through a module, an electric module, where I can adjust the sounds and stuff and what I produce for covers or whatever. I'm playing through headphones, so this protects me, my ears. It keeps them from the outside ear, because for years I played open ear on the set, and I over time did wind up with some ear damage in my ears, mostly my left, but I do have some damage to both of them. So that's something that you really want to consider if you're doing acoustic. So your own personal safety, your hearing safety, is to do that, and I highly recommend you consider that. Next for me is like placement of stuff, and this goes whether or not it's electric set or hybrid or acoustic like this. Clearly, an acoustic set takes up more space. Electric sets are way more compact, so you're typically going to be closer to the kit. So, but you also, in the same way there, you've got to consider your placement versus the drum placement. One thing you want to do is stay centered. You want your body staying centered as much as possible, and you want to consider where your cymbals or your drums are placed. Like, you don't want to be overstretching and stuff like that, you know, having to do some wild maneuver to hit any part of the drum kit. It should be within reach of you staying centered as much as possible. Now, some movement, you know, isn't going to hurt you, but you just don't want to be doing anything over that, because this is a physical, probably one of the most physical instruments there is. You can pull muscles and stuff easily. So consider that. And something that you're going to probably constantly change and adjust as you learn and as you get comfortable on the set. Moving cymbals around in different positions, different heights or whatever. Like for me, I prefer sitting over a little bit over the top of everything. So all my cymbals are low. But some people prefer their cymbals up high. They want to hit up here. And that's fine. It's just up to you. But it's something that you can consider and play around with as you're learning the drums. Stuff like even right now, I've got a back support on the chair. The throne is very important to consider. You know, something where you're sitting on, you don't want to be sitting on something too hard for too long or something like that. I've got a nice cushiony one with a back support, but I'm a little older. I kind of need the back support. But it's something to consider, you know, how you want to play, how you want to feel sitting down. Understand your own body, in other words, in which, you know, is best for you. The next thing would be the safety and protection of the kit itself. Like I said, this is one of the more physical instruments and is one of the most probably brittle instruments also to some degree, because it's something that you're making a full-on contact with. You're hitting stuff. things break. So, you know, if you are somebody on a budget, you want to make sure that you're attempting and approaching the kit in a way that protects the kit and protects your wallet. That's something that took a long time for me to understand and think through in my playing, is how I strike things, how hard I hit things, and understanding that you don't have to hit as hard as you think. Matter of fact, in a lot of ways, if you can hit lighter, it helps you. It helps the kit all around. It kind of helps you all around. It helps your longevity in playing and the longevity of the kit itself, or the hardware of the kit. Everything breaks, right? Sticks break, cymbals can crack, heads on the drums can crack and break. The idea is to try to have them last as long as possible, right? Especially cymbals, because these things are expensive. This equipment is one of the most expensive instruments, if not the most expensive instrument, you know, especially the more pieces you have. So when you're striking cymbals, you don't want to be straight on striking cymbals. That's something that a lot of early new players do that are wrong. I did it myself, not considering how to strike the cymbals. A simple thing, but most just thinking bang, bang, bang. When what you actually want to do is a more sweeping motion. You want to hit them at the side. So you don't want to go straight down on them. You want to kind of side swipe them as much as you can. So thinking about sweeping motions across your cymbals for the most part. Your hi-hat and ride are a little bit different on that. It's not quite as serious on those particular cymbals because they are extra thick. Like your ride is really thick. I don't think I've ever had a ride break. I mean, you'd have to be hitting it pretty hard to break it. And the same thing with hi-hats. I don't think I've ever had a hi-hat crack either, but they are thicker, and you're placing two cymbals together, you know, because you have a cymbal supporting the other cymbal. But on your overhead, your crashes, your splashes, stuff like that, your chinas, they are thinner, and so they're easier to crack and break. While you can still play a cracked and broken cymbal, I have. I make them go as long as I possibly can. It does start to deteriorate the sound of that cymbal or the resonance of the cymbal. Like a crash cymbal, you know, over time will start to sound more like a trash or a splash cymbal or something like that, because the resonance is lost because of the crack or broken, you know, broken piece out of it or something like that. It won't have as much resonance, and the sound won't carry as much as you would prefer. Something like that, it would be like a more and over, you know, it deads. It's like a dead cymbal to some degree. Consider that in your playing as you're learning. Sooner you start practicing that type of way, doing more sweeping motion, it'll improve your drumming for one, and improve your attack and your approach to how you play the cymbals, but also it will improve the longevity of your equipment and stuff like that. Toms and heads, like the heads of the toms and snares, the same way. These, the more you hit them, the harder you hit them, the more, you know, impact and damage that you're doing to them. I don't know that I've ever really broken a tom, but it is possible. Snare will probably break before anything because it's tighter usually. Most drummers will have a snare a whole lot tighter because they're trying to get the higher resonance in a snare for it to snap through the rest of the kit. So usually a snare is more mid to high toned, so the head's a lot tighter, where your toms are a little bit usually more loose, so they have some flexibility and are less likely to break. And over time, as you hit, you know, the heads, they flex. And so you can continue to stretch them by tightening them up a little bit and a little bit more, but at some point it will stretch to the point where it's just warped and your sound is not going to be as clean and clear. You kind of have to replace them over time anyways, depending upon how much you're playing. If you're not playing but once a month or something, they can last for probably years. But if you're playing like every single day, hours a day, then yeah, there's a good possibility that you're going to have to replace them more frequently. But the longevity of that can be determined even more so by how you approach that. The snare, like I said, the snare is usually tighter, so it has a more probability of cracking or breaking than any of them. So, you know, but that's because a lot of times we're straight on hitting the snare. We hit the snare more than you do any of the toms usually. I mean, on average, you're hitting the snare probably 10 times more than you are, or even more than that, than you are the toms. So that's the reason why the snare does, you know, it gets a lot of attack. It gets a lot of damage done to it. You're probably going to have to frequently tune the snare because it will flex more and more until it, you know, like I said, either you're going to lose tone or they won't be able to hold tone, or you'll actually break it. Those are the kinds of things to think about, and how you approach the drums, how you strike the drums. That's something you should immediately kind of be thinking of as you're learning to play. Try to kind of, that's something that I wish, like I said, I wish I would have done immediately, was approached my playing in a more calmer way than just going buck wild on this kit and, you know, frequently breaking stuff and having to replace them when I didn't really have the budget to replace them. And oftentimes I was trying to replace stuff with used stuff, so then it would just break faster. So consider that kind of thing, and that will help your wallet. It will help the longevity of the equipment, and help your safety, all those kinds of things. I would say sticks is something that you can, you know, learn with. There's different types of sticks and stuff. Usually when you're starting out, you're just going to use a basic, like a 5A or 5B stick, which is what these are, 5A sticks, although they're not the same brand. I need to buy me some more sticks. I think these are the last two that I have. And these are just standard wood sticks. They come in different sizes. The smaller the number, the fatter the stick is. So like a 2A would be a really thick stick. Then you have like 5As. You have 7As, which are more thinner sticks. And it depends upon your style of play that you're playing with. A lot of hard rock players or heavy players will play with thicker sticks, like the 2As or something. Even though I play hard, I prefer the 5s because I just don't like the thick sticks. I don't like the weight of them, the way I hold them. It just doesn't work for me. I have played with the 7s, with the more thinner sticks. It's been more with a lighter playing style, jazz or something like that. We'll sometimes play with the 7s. You have different types of tips. Design. Some are more fatty, some are more pointy. That's like your A and B's and stuff like that, your lettering. You have like different tip styles, like nylon tips, which are plastic tips, versus wood. So the plastic sometimes will last a little bit longer than the just straight wood, especially with hitting cymbals and stuff. But it's not necessary that it's really going to make the stick last longer than any other, really, in my opinion. It just depends on your playing, and it does have a slight different sound effect as well. The nylons, the way the nylons strike versus just straight wood strike, there's a slight bit of difference in the sound. Not too crazy, but it is a slight bit of difference. And then you have other versions like these, which are Firth Titans. These are carbon fiber sticks. They are very hard, very durable, last very long, but at the same time will damage your equipment a lot faster, depending upon how you play. So they are heavy-duty sticks. I don't play with them very much anymore. I tried them out for a while, and I played with them for a while, but I did notice that I was actually causing a lot of damage to the cymbals and stuff like that with them more, even though they lasted longer. So it's something to consider if they're cool, interesting sticks. And like I said, they are durable as hell. If you're not careful, they will damage your equipment a lot faster. And you have hot rod sticks, or just multi-rod sticks. Hot rod is a name brand of multi-rod stick. But multi-rod sticks, so they have little thin rods that are banded together. Okay, so these are a little softer. They hit softer, so they give a different tone, a little bit more warmer tone to the drums as you're playing. So it depends upon the style that you're playing in. You have different types of rod sticks. These are like the thin, they're all rodded. I think there's like 12 or 15 sticks, whatever, something like that. In this particular one, they're all the same size rods. You have some that have thick center rods, and then this surrounded by smaller rods. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic in it. And then you have some that are just solidly thicker rods. So it would be more like maybe 7 or 8, 9 rods or something, but they're thicker rods. So they each different size and have a slightly different feel, have a slightly different tone. Just depends on what you're going for. But they are interesting to use and to play around with, and can extend your creativity. All the different sticks and stuff can expand your creativity in different ways. But they also could be used very, very well for like practice. If you're needing to be a little bit more quiet, or whatever, then these are quieter sticks. They don't make as much sound on the drums as your full-on wood sticks. And if you're just wanting to kind of softly play through something, maybe you're trying to learn it or whatever, it could be used for something like that as well. And then you have brush sticks, like these right here. These are Vic Firth live wires. So they have their wires. You can extend them in different ways. If you want them tighter, more broad out, so that these are, and I have a couple of different versions. I have another version around here somewhere, but these are the ones that have little balls at the end, so they brush a little bit harder. I have ones that are purple that are just thin. They're a little bit thinner, and they don't have any type of ball at the end. So they hit a little bit softer, but it's like a brush kind of feel, real light if you're playing more toned down, calmer music, jazzier music, or something like that. That's something to play around with. You can get completely different tone and sound out of the drums with things like this. And I bought these just really to play around in that way, so I could be a little more creative and think through, consider how I'm approaching different things. I don't play with them a whole lot, but every now and then I'll pull them out for fun. But it's just, like I said, depends upon your playing style and what you're going for. But there are different things, something different there. And there are other sticks as well. Those are all that I have. You have more mallet-like sticks. If you're wanting to do different effects on different drums or cymbals or something like that. It's not necessary. Like I said, most starting out, you're just going to get a regular standard stick. I highly suggest doing if you like, the first thing, if you want to expand on your sticks, is get a multi-rod stick. That way, and it helps a little bit with creativity and stuff, approaching drums in different ways, like the way you approach different things on the drums. It can help with that. But like I said, it's not something that's required or needed immediately, but it's something that you can consider, later on at some point, or just, in your learning arc as you are, learning the drums. Your next thing is like understanding tempo and realizing tempo, keeping up with tempo, all these different things. And that's kind of goes back to me. For me personally, it's more like an internal clock that I have. Most drummers will use like a metronome, and to keep up, it's a click that helps them keep up with the tempo while they're playing, so they stay in tempo. I personally have never used. I have used a metronome, but I've never liked using it. For me, it throws me off more than helps me. A technical, learned drummer probably watching this is gonna probably yell at the screen for half of the stuff that I say, but for me personally, it's just never helped. And I feel like, and I'm not in any way trying to say that you should not use one. If you can use one, and if it doesn't bother you, most certainly probably you need to use it at least for a little while. Then you can use it less. But if it does throw you off, maybe you're like me, you have an internal clock that you are kind of connected to, and you can think through that. You can keep that tempo no matter what you're doing or how you're approaching something. The tempo doesn't change, and you're constantly there with it, and you can stick with it. But there are ways to physically maintain that clock as you play. Most basic drum beats, you may have heard of 4 on the floor. That is one where your basic 4/4 measure in a song, your basic setup for a song, and it's where you have 4 beats to each measure, and the 4 on the floor is basically literally the bass, the floor. You're pounding the bass through all 4 beats, unless you're doing like a half time where you're beating on every other beat. Most of the time 1 and 3. In some instances you can do 2 and 4. You can alternate that, but the 4 on the floor is usually straight on all 4 beats. Boom, 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 boom. Very basic in like your more techno, EDM, or even pop music, things like that, is going to be all 4 on the floor. Straight punch through beats. But there's other ways to approach that, and a lot of times I think people, and that's what most people, because they listen to the majority of people listening to music, because pop music, things like that, is most common there. That's kind of the way they hear the beat, or they expect to keep the tempo, is through the bass. But there are other ways to present that tempo, which a lot of times the reason why some people can't get completely in like some rock music stuff or whatever, especially more progressive music, whether it's rock or jazz or blues or something like that, because you tend to actually present that tempo in other ways than the bass. You can present the tempo through the snare. Most commonly, you present it through the hi-hats or the cymbals, keeping that beat, and then you're doing off pattern stuff with the bass or the snare, toms, or even cymbal work, whatever within that, polyrhythm type of stuff or whatever. And so a lot of times that can be presented in different ways. So while you might start out learning 4 on the floor as a basic rhythm, it would be good for you to start trying to alternate that in different ways, and don't just stick to one particular way of drumming. Trying to explore how you're approaching or how you're presenting the tempo. It doesn't have to necessarily always be through the bass. It can be through the hi-hat. It can be through the snare. It can be through a cymbal. And that can completely change how you're approaching a song, how you're approaching creating, a drum beat or a groove or whatever for a song. For you learning, it's probably the easiest thing to learn right off the bat and to present and keep yourself in tempo, but understand that you can, alter that amongst other members of the kit. Here I'm going to kind of give some presentations of like different, what I mean by the 4 on the floor, and how you can alternate that through different parts of the drum. That's a little bit how you can present 4 on the floor, driving the beat through the bass, driving the beat through the cymbals, driving the beat through the hi-hat, driving the beat through the ride, or through the snare. So there's different ways you can approach presenting the tempo and beat through anything on the kit. For me, one of the biggest things in learning to play was being relaxed and not, trying to loosen myself up, not being robotic or anything like that. Like, the more relaxed, it comes kind of the idea of the sweeping thing through the cymbals. You kind of want to do that almost across the whole kit if you can, learning how, because it'll allow you to, in learning how to counter your movements, and it also helps you even keeping in tempo or striking in different ways that can work with the tempo. One thing to also consider and think about as you're learning to play is how to separate not only your right from your left side, but also your upper body from your lower body. That's something that's hard on a lot of drummers. It's even at times been hard for me, but trying to constantly work through to where you can use each, right hand, left hand, right foot, left foot, in any kind of way alternative each other. So that's something to continue, like little by little, you want to try to continuously work on, is to separating out each limb and able to do different things. So sometimes an easy way to approach that is to have an open hand, like the cross pattern's standard, but you also have an open pattern style as well. So in other words, you would be doing everything that you would do this way, but on the opposite hand. So instead of hitting with a hi-hat with your right, you'd be hitting the hi-hat with your left. And like instead of the snare with the left, you'd be hitting the snare with the right. So it's like that. And of course, alternating that. So instead, now, especially if you're continuing to play the bass on the right, on your right foot, then now you're playing right foot but left hand together. Okay, so that's something that you want to little by little work with, or you can even try to do it with the left. So I can hit it with that. If you want to continuously progress yourself and be able to do more things and approach things in different ways, learning how to separate out each one of your limbs is pretty critical. It's something that you could be very much benefit from to progress your learning and stuff like that. One thing too that I think I had a lot of issue with is being patient on learning something. Take it slower if you can. That's something that I wish I would have figured out too, is just taking things a little bit slower and like taking your time through it. Do it multiple times over and over and over again, and just understanding that some things are not going to come as fast as others. Some patterns are not going to come as fast as others. Some approaches are just not going to work. You might have to be creative and find another approach to something. Transitions are not always going to work. You have to approach them in a different way. But it's just keeping an open mind as much as you can and finding ways to get around whatever's blocking you, because you're going to oftentimes have blocks. You're going to hit something where, you're going to want to be creative and, as much as you can, try to find a different way to approach it. That's one other thing, is to take a break. Learn when to take a break. Sometimes it's better, I've found, that if you're just hitting a roadblock, not figuring out how to get around something or how to get through something, or trying to practice on something simple, but yet it's just not working. You're not keeping in tempo, or whatever the case. Maybe you're just fatigued and you step away for a little bit, come back at a later time once you've rested up, you've cleared your mind. And a lot of times you can sit down and either a different way of approaching is going to click, or what you've been doing is going to finally click. So just learn. That's a big thing too, is to learn when to take a break. These are things that I picked up and figured out on my own along the way, learning and watching other drummers or something like that. Hopefully, to some degree, something in this video has helped you. and probably pissed off some people as well. But no way was this supposed to be or meaning to be some sort of technical teaching or anything. This is just me and the way I approach drums, and the way I would have some things that I would have liked to have known early on, tips and stuff. So I hope that you have found something interesting in this, and yeah, if you like what I did here, then and you would like to see other, things you want me to discuss or talk about, or give my opinion on, or suggestions or whatever, feel free to let me know in the comments. And thank you very much for joining me. And I've been JMD, and until next time, later, peace.